Good morning, Twin Cities. Welcome to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream and building a better real estate company. I'm Paige Kale with the Real Estate Collaborative, and my colleague Mark Byers is here with us today. And we also have a special guest, one of our past clients, Ginger Eager. Welcome, Ginger.
Hi.
Hi, so glad you could be here. So this is the first episode we've done with a past client. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We'll talk a little bit about your experience working with REC and some of the different things that REC does compared to traditional big box corporate brokers and how that was for you and your husband, Grant. To start, why don't we ask our guests the American dream. So why don't you, what do you think about when you think about the American dream, or what do you feel, or what images come to mind?
The falsity of it, right? We're guaranteed the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence, and it's just the pursuit. And capitalism thrives on no one ever actually getting there.
Okay, well, that's keeping it real. I like that. I like that answer. Yeah. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself? You're a writer, you're a published author, you moved here from someplace else. Just share with us some information about you.
Yeah. So, as you said, I'm a writer and I work as a developmental editor. I am originally from Georgia. My family has been there for a long time. I lived there all of my life except for 4 years that I was in Nevada. I'm 51 years old. And my husband, Grant, and I were lucky enough to move to the Twin Cities about a year and a half ago. He's a geologist, and so he found a job. But we had been interested in this area for quite a while because I had clients who lived here who were just such kind, wonderful people.
Yeah. And I think you and Grant, did you look at other areas? I know, Mark, when you moved up here from Texas, you and your wife looked at a lot of different areas. Did you guys look at different areas in the country, or was it just you were honed in on Minnesota?
So Grant has managed to work himself into this little niche position. And so there are only a handful of places where he could even do what he does. And we were quite limited by that. My work is virtual. But there was this wonderful synchrony because I had been talking about the Twin Cities for about a decade. And every time I would bring it up, Grant would go, "How do you even live in Minnesota?" Because he's also from Georgia, but even farther south, hotter.
Yeah. And how do you live in Minnesota? So you've been here for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And how has it been compared to Georgia?
I love it. I mean, for me, one of the big differences that I'm really enjoying, we were in Atlanta, which is a marvelous, seat of Black power, seat of Democratic power, seat of the civil rights movement. All of that is fantastic. And then you get right outside of 285, which rings the city, and you're encountering a much different culture. And so even within Atlanta, you're having a lot of discussions around, well, for instance, Renee Good, there was a recent shooting here, right, of an observer by ICE. And when I talk to people in Atlanta who are quite liberal, we're still having discussions over whether she had put herself in a position to sort of bring about what happened to her. I haven't had that discussion with anyone that I know in Minnesota. There is no question but that was a murder, and everyone looks at that video and sees it as a murder. So I appreciate that part of living here very much. I do miss being able to run on the sidewalks any time of year. That's hard. Yeah. I've bought some ice bikes, and so we'll see how it goes.
I know. And we were talking about that on the way here, and I expressed concern about running on the ice with the ice bikes. So I hope that goes well.
Thanks. I'll let you know. Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell our listeners, how did you find REC? How did you find the Real Estate Collaborative?
Yeah, that was another like lucky accident. So I asked everyone that I knew in Georgia if they knew of any real estate agents in Minnesota. And one friend had gone to grad school here. She had gone to the U for grad school. And so she had a friend from grad school who she put me in touch with, and she recommended REC.
Okay.
And that's how I found REC. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I think a lot of our business is, through referrals, word of mouth, and we were very lucky to connect with you. I remember having our first meeting. I think it was virtual, and talking to you a little bit about how REC was different. Do you remember anything about like our first conversation
I do.
afterwards and kind of what you thought about this crazy thing that we're trying to do?
Yes. So I thought it was wonderful. So we had a virtual meeting, and you were in the process of moving. And so you had
That's
like all
right.
sorts of boxes around you. And then you had Stella, your little dog,
Oh
came
my
in.
gosh.
And you
Yeah.
just told me about this company that you were starting. And so we were also in the process of selling a house, much more traditionally in Atlanta. And I really appreciated several things that you had to say. I mean, one, that there was that the fees were transparent, so I knew how much it would cost, right,
Mm-hmm.
to sell this house. And then also that we could pay a bit upfront. There was that down payment piece.
Mm-hmm.
So then I didn't feel guilty or as guilty, since we ended up seeing so many houses, but I didn't feel guilty asking to be seen houses because we were
Yeah.
coming to an area that we didn't know at all. So we had no opinions on where we wanted to live. We didn't even know if we wanted to be in Minneapolis or St. Paul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember that. We looked at houses in, yeah, both cities. I think you were clear that you wanted to be in one or the other,
Yeah, we knew that.
Minneapolis or St. Paul. Yeah, so you mentioned the down payment or the retainer
Hmm.
option. And when we started, I really didn't know how people were going to respond to the
Mhm.
retainer option, because it's been on our forums for 22 years since I've been a realtor, but I've never known anybody to use it. And overwhelmingly, I would say people's response is exactly what you're saying, that, it is, I mean, most realtors work for the commission at closing, and they're not compensated anything until then. And then if the client decides not to sell or not to buy for some reason, then, they don't get compensated,
Right.
which is kind
Mhm.
of a perverse thing in my estimation. And I think most people, like, you probably wouldn't help somebody write a book without being compensated. So it is a strange thing. So it's nice to hear you say that about the retainer. And we do incentivize folks too, that if you do the retainer option, the fee, the compensation is less than if you just
Mhm.
do not do the retainer and just do the compensation at closing. So,
Yeah. Was it the way when you first heard about it? I know it was probably different than you had experienced coming from Georgia, potentially, of having it be a transparent flat fee. Did you have an easy time understanding the reason behind it and what that was like? Was it a surprising thing for you to to hear?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually felt a little guilty. I didn't understand because
I
we ended up,
remember that
yeah.
we had actually a number of conversations. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we paid so much money in Atlanta,
Mhm.
right? We were the sellers, and so we paid our agent's fee, but then we also paid, I think we paid closing costs and maybe
Wow.
some other portion. There was something that we paid for the other agent, and it was a lot more money
And it was a
than what we
percentage
paid.
of what your home
Yes.
sold for, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we couldn't really calculate it. I mean, that was a factor in buying a home here. We didn't
Hmm.
know exactly how much money we had, to buy the home here because we weren't sure what our home would sell for in
Mhm.
Georgia. So we had to
Right.
wait until that home sold to have a solid number to work with.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand I know when Paige and I talked for the first time, we were moving toward the date at which everything changed. I'm not saying that well. You'll have to say more about that.
Oh, right. You're
Yeah.
talking about the settlement.
Yes.
Yeah, the antitrust lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and some of the biggest brokers in the country that settled in August. That's right, in August of 2024 for whatever it was, $341 million. It was a big deal. And we
Yeah.
met either right before or right after, or
We met
yeah.
right before, and you said, this is going to be a big deal and things are really going to change. And so then our house went on market early September. And in Atlanta, my real estate agent was saying, this really isn't changing anything. It's not changing a thing. Like, the big agencies are working together to make sure that nothing changes. And then I'm thinking, okay, but it's all going to change, in Minnesota. It's all going to change. And then it wasn't changing here either. And so then I'm looking at you thinking, oh my God, she's doing this amazing service for everyone and she's making so much less money. So
yeah. And I've talked on this show before about, I'm kind of a bad capitalist. Like, I think most people would be like, if we can make this much money, why don't we?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said everything you just said, because then I don't have to, but I am going to say it because it's worth repeating, I think.
Yeah.
After the settlement, it's so interesting to me that your agent was like, yep, nothing's changing. All the big brokers are getting together. I mean, that is the definition of collusion. And what's the opposite of antitrust? It's the price fixing. It's the definition of price fixing. And yes, I tend to be an idealist, and I tend to be like, oh yeah, it's going to change everything. And yeah, it hasn't changed things up here either, which is something else to me.
And it's interesting, in Texas, where we moved up here from, I did talk to I have friends that were realtors and our agent as well. And they did say the change is now everything is negotiable. It's not going to be written in there. So
so that's interesting. So you were hearing from realtors down there that things are changing a little.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is the music. That is our cue to go to break, and we will come back on the other side. You're listening to Reckoning with Real Estate, and we're joined by one of our clients, Ginger, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Oh, wrecking ball, you still Welcome back to Reckoning with Real Estate. I'm Paige Kale with the Real Estate Collaborative. You can find us at therecolab.com, THERE as in real estate, and collab is short for collaborative. The real estate, what did I just say? The Recolab, the Recolab.com. Recola. I like saying that. Recola. And Mark is here. My colleague, Mark Byers, is here with us. Hello.
Hello.
And our client, Ginger Eager.
Hi.
Her and her husband, Grant, bought a house in St. Paul about a year. Well, gosh, it's been right about a year. No. How long is it? When did you close? I should know. I didn't prepare very well.
We moved in early March, moved into the house in early March, but we closed a month before that, or 2 weeks before, something.
We found your house for you like in January or February of last year.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to work backwards a little bit, but during break, you were mentioning the other reason that you enjoyed working with REC, which is
the housing justice piece. Yeah. And so when you and I had our initial Zoom interview, you had explained to me that, there's not enough housing in the Twin Cities, and the difficulty with constructing new housing, and a little bit about zoning laws. I wasn't aware at that point that there had been active redlining in Minnesota, but coming from Georgia, everyone's always trying to work against that history, especially in the cities. I've learned that, it was also in existence here since moving here from you. So I had this like quick little lesson around housing justice. And then I wasn't sure what that meant in terms of working with rec.
Sure.
But I said to Grant, like, oh, they're involved in housing justice and we're going to go with them. And he said, that's great. And then as I've known you, I mean, what it has looked like is that I get invitations to learn more at YIMBY gatherings, right? And to learn more at different sorts of fundraisers for different nonprofits in the community that are involved in housing justice. And so it became this way to like immediately plug in to a cause that we were concerned with, which is, I mean, I think it just speaks to how sort of no matter the what am I trying to say? No matter the area that the business exists in, it has the capacity to work for good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's a good point. And again, I've talked about this on the show, but it's baffling to me why our industry doesn't do more around advocating for more housing. It really is terribly confusing to my head and my heart. And so we at the Real Estate Collaborative continue to kind of push for the real estate industry. The largest trade organization in North America has some pull, has some say in some things. And I would say generally, 90% of the time we maybe use our voice to help the people that don't need the help, if that makes sense. It's more about money and power and the things that
And when you came from Georgia, was there anything like that down there for housing justice and part that you were already being part of, or was this a new thing for you?
Both. I mean, I know that there were groups working for housing justice, and we weren't directly involved with that. I mean, it was always one of the concerns with, lots of the lots of the civil rights groups in the area, but it wasn't something that I knew much about. And there certainly wasn't an intersection that I ever saw or experienced with real estate. We had bought, we've now bought and sold 2 houses in Georgia, and that was never part of the experience.
Yeah, and that's for us as well. Coming from Texas, you knew about that there were groups there, but it wasn't part of the real estate process. That it was almost like a separate thing. So, first meeting Paige and getting to hear about all of that, it was just like, oh yeah, it makes sense that they would merge, right?
Yes.
That they would be together, because you're right. I mean, we should be advocating for that. Who would be better to do that? And so, yeah, it was really cool to think about it in that way.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, like consumers, will see, residential real estate and housing justice. That's kind of our tagline. And they'll assume that we do like nonprofit work, or that, and we do some we support some nonprofits, some housing nonprofits, but we aren't a nonprofit. We are very much a for-profit, just trying to do business differently than all the other big, brokers, big real estate companies out there. Because sometimes we do get calls, and I think people think we work for free somehow. And I'm like, no, those are the other realtors. No, and we do some pro bono kind of work as well. But we are for profit, and we just have a very, very different model.
But we do have a lot of different options, and that is one thing that
yes
try to say is we have facilitation options in addition. So we try to give people who are at different places more options than normally. They're just like, oh, there's just one track and one option.
Right.
That's all I have, and I either can't afford that to even get into that. And so by stepping people through just the transparency and the options that we have, people have been already, seeing it in a different way.
Well, and I think that we're constantly kind of working on that too. Like we're very In fact, a conversation that I had with you and Grant early on, I think you asked the question, well, what if you show us like 100 homes and we still haven't found something? I mean, don't we owe you more money? You were very, like, in a way that most clients aren't necessarily. You were very, and I think it's because you were selling your house in Georgia. You knew how much you were paying your realtor there, and you were paying us less, considerably less, and yet it felt commensurate for the amount of time and the work that we were doing for you. But which is also another one of our kind of main tenets, is how to be compensated in a way that's commensurate with the work that we're doing. Um, but yeah, you were like, well, maybe we should give you another retainer, if we haven't found a house by, within the first, by the end of the year or something. And I was like, that's a good kind of thing for me to think about, for us to think about, is how does that work? And you did end up paying another additional amount in January, because you had put, I don't know, you had made 4 or 5 offers on homes and
Yeah.
were outbid, or outmaneuvered, or I don't know what, but yeah. So that was.
I know. I wish we had numbers. I like the money transparency, but I didn't think to pull any of those together. Or yeah.
Oh, you know what? I have my computer here, and
Oh
if
yeah.
you two want to talk amongst yourself. You mean how much that you compensated, Rack? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, just if that would be helpful so I come from a working class background
Mm-hmm.
where like numbers are discussed pretty transparently, and then
Mhm.
I'm a class jumper, right? And so what I
What does
have
that
learned,
mean?
that means that I'm now solidly middle class,
Oh, I
you
see what you're
know?
saying. Yeah.
And so one of the things I've learned is that the more money you have, the less you talk about money. And it creates this illusion that people are, it creates this illusion that people are out there doing these things like buying houses when they're 32. And the people who are buying houses when they're 32 generally have someone helping them. They have some parents who are like, we're going to help you with the down payment. We're going to help you, which we had. Like Grant's family was like, we're going to help you with the down payment. And then my family was like, we're going to come in and we're going to fix your AC and we're going to help you paint walls. And, we're coming with the skills that we have. And so then we ended up getting this house in an area that we wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise, which appreciated really well. And then we were able to buy another house. And so there's been this like accumulation of wealth through home ownership that wouldn't have been possible without that initial monetary assistance.
Right, and that's why the housing justice piece is so important for people to not have that opportunity, because it's either had been written in the covenant, right, that we found out there's still to this day and deeds here that it still have those there. So as you remove those, and that's a generational thing, right, because your parents were able to help there. So the more we are able to have people to just be able to purchase houses, that gets you into that category of being able to have that wealth.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we have worked with clients that are first generation home buyers, and we have given them a really nice kind of discount on the compensation for that reason. So that is something that we can definitely do. But no matter what price home you're looking to buy or you're selling, there's always going to be this flat dollar amount that's going to save you quite a bit of money from the traditional big box brokers. So I did pull up your contract. So I do have numbers. Do you want to share with people like what your price point is or not?
I don't care at all. Yeah, I know that our house in Atlanta, we ended up, and again, this is just going to be an estimate because I didn't pull down the numbers, but we ended up paying about $30,000 all told at the end for all of the fees. And you guys can speak as to what those probably were. I just know that that's what it cost us. Yeah.
Yep. And so your house here, to buy it, the contract initially was $2,000 retainer up front. And then I have to do math in my head. 8,000 at closing. but then because by the end of the year, we hadn't gotten you a house yet. You had made offers, but hadn't secured a house yet. Then you did another $2,000 retainer. So the total amount was $12,000, which I don't have the savings in front of me, but based on the house that you purchased, it was roughly a savings of about $5,000 to $6,000 probably.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and the $12,000, quite frankly, that's a ton of money, and that felt fair to me. Plus, you and your husband, Grant, were just fun to be around.
Yeah.
You're fun too. Yeah. I mean, that's another selling point that maybe isn't discussed often enough.
Yeah, no, it was great. And now we're running out of time
Okay.
again. So I'm just going to make the decision that we'll do a two-parter on
Okay.
this one. So will you come back and talk to us a little bit more about?
Yeah, I would love to, because we talked about how much fun you are.
Yeah. So let's talk about that more.
Right.
How much fun Paige is. Well, thanks for listening in, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday on Reckoning with